everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webcast, Streamline Industrial Internet of Things Development with Eclipse and ThingWorx. I'm Alex Cicchetti, and I will be your moderator for today's event. Our speaker today is Taryn Helgeson, Senior Software Engineer on the Technology Platform team here at PTC. Taryn is an active driver in the development of ThingWorx platform enhancements and a leader in development efforts on the ThingWorx Eclipse Plugin for extension development. We would like this webcast to be interactive, so please feel free to join the conversation. You can post questions in the Q&A pane at the bottom of your screen, and we will do our best to answer all of these during our closing Q&A session. In case we are unable to get to your question, we will have our team follow up with you after the webcast. Just one last note before we get started. We will be recording today's webcast and we'll send the recording to all registrants as soon as it's made available. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to our presenter, Taryn Helgeson. Taryn?
All right, let's get started. I am Taryn Helgeson, and as Alex said, I'm a senior software engineer on the ThingWorx team. Work mostly on the ThingWorx platform and have spent a lot of time in the areas of extensibility, like the Eclipse plugin and the SDKs, and making sure that development inside of the ThingWorx platform is as easy as we could possibly make it. So with that, I will get started. So what we're going to go over today, a few basic things. What is ThingWorx for those of you that haven't been introduced to it? The ThingWorx model. We'll go over a short demo of the ThingWorx Composer, and then get into the more meaty part of the presentation, which is creating ThingWorx extensions using the Eclipse plugin. I'm going to try not to spend a lot of time on the slides and get more into the demos, and so we'll be covering quite a lot of information. Make sure that you post questions in the Q&A chat log for throughout the whole presentation, and then we can get to them at the end. All right, what is ThingWorx? ThingWorx is a development platform. It's made to take all of the hard back-end work out of the hands of the developers. It is mostly built for the industrial Internet of Things, and being able to build your model very quickly and not having to worry about things like creating a database schema, writing the back-end level code for all the communication protocols, the translation, the logic on the lower level tiers, not having to worry about building complex user interfaces just to view the data once you've got it. ThingWorx really enables all of that to be done very, very quickly and easily. Next, I want to talk about the ThingWorx model. The ThingWorx model is a collection of entities, and you'll hear me say that word quite a bit today. Entities is the overarching term for anything that defines a piece of your model. It can be a thing or a thing template, thing shape. We'll get into those in a second. But it's the definition pieces that you'll use to build your model, build your business model. So what do you need for a model? Or why do I need a model? It's going to help maximize reusability. It will help be able to not have to redo creating services or properties or events, be able to reuse those. You can decide what you want to hide and expose. The ThingWorx platform handles permissions and security from the design phase all the way to the runtime phase. So at every level, you can assign permissions to each and every entity as you wish. It makes it very easy to add or remove functionality as time goes on, and encapsulate that so that it's very easy to move around, add, remove, change. And essentially, it's built to make sure that we can keep our developers as productive as possible, not thinking about all of those low-level details and focusing on what they know, which is the product they're building or the service that they're providing. So here are the basic entity types for the ThingWorx model. Everything is sort of built on top of a template. The thing template is just kind of the blueprint of what you're modeling. So it's usually housing a lot of the services and the properties, the data points for the physical things out in the world. It's a general definition of a physical thing. And it all works through inheritance. So a thing template can inherit from another thing template and so on and so forth, which enables you to sort of encapsulate this type of functionality at different layers. A thing shape is just a piece, a single feature, or a single part of the physical thing in the physical world. So it can be anything from a set of functionality, or it can be an actual physical part of your thing. That also has properties, services, events, and those will all get inherited down the inheritance chain as well. And then the main thing is the actual thing. That is one instance of a real thing out there. So if you're on a production line and you create a million things, you'll have one model which has a set of thing templates and shapes, but you'll have one thing for each physical thing in the world. And this will inherit all of its properties and services and events and from its inheritance tree. This does have a lot of comparisons to the object-oriented model for those programmers out there. So the thing template is like a class. It gives you some definition, but it's not an instance of it. The thing shape is like an interface. It adds functionality to something but doesn't really live on its own. And then the thing is the actual instance of the object if you're in object-oriented programming. Here's an example. It's definitely easier to think of these conceptual pieces in the real world. So this example is of a tractor. So if you were to build an M-Series tractor, you would probably build a generic M-Series template, and then that template could have some shapes. It'll have an engine and a tractor deck. These shapes, are reusable, so they could be used on a T-Series tractor or a P-Series tractor, and that's why, we put them in shapes so that they are able to be reused. And then as you define your model a little more granular, you can move down to, an M500, an M300, and an M100 tractor template. They may have a few different properties, services, and features, or you can see on the left here that, the M500 tractor template has a GPS tracking system. And so we're able to, with this inheritance model, add functionality to the specific areas that we need without having to, redo any functionality, without having to duplicate a lot of that. And at any point in the future, if we wanted to add, GPS tracking to, say, the M300 template, then it would be just as easy as assigning it that shape, and it would automatically gain all of that functionality. And then, of course, the dark green on the bottom here are just the specific instances. Those would be the real tractors out in the world that are driving around and collecting data. All right, so I'm going to jump over to the ThingWorx Composer. This is kind of the main landing page of our ThingWorx platform here. It's where you will define your model, build your end-to-end solution. We can do things like rapidly develop apps using what we call Mashup Builder. Mashups are the drag and drop user interface so that you can easily see a lot of your data and see your model without having to spend a lot of time custom building those UIs. And it'll also be the home of all of your entities and a way to view them and iterate on them easily. I'm going to jump over and share my screen. All right, so this is ThingWorx Composer. What you'll see here is a list of all the entities. There's a lot of them out of the box. You can see these ones are sort of their media entities, their style definitions for some of the UI. Over on the left here, you'll look and you'll recognize some of these modeling entities. So things, templates, and shapes we went over. There are quite a few more data shapes, projects if you want to group a bunch of entities to work on them in a project. Tags, very helpful for finding specific sets. And there are quite a few. You can easily hook in some analytics to the data once you start collecting it. There are a lot of other entities, such as security that I mentioned earlier, where you can put your users into groups or organizations, or assign application keys, which usually get put onto a device in the field so that they are authenticated against the platform. Lots of different entity types here. We're not going to go into most of them just because of time constraints. A lot of them you can find demos and tutorials on in our developer zone, which I'll talk about in a little bit. The other area that we actually will show is this visualization area. So one of the big things, like I mentioned a couple of times, is the rapid UI development that ThingWorx offers. So Mashup is the entity that actually you actually do this rapid UI development. These other gadgets or dashboards or menus, style definitions, those are things that you can add into a mashup. So I have a weather app mashup demo here. This is a one that I built quickly. It doesn't actually run because we don't have our extension installed. We'll build our extension in a moment, and then this will come together a little more clearly. But I wanted to show you how easy it is to build one of these UIs. So once you're in Mashup Builder here, you've got a list of widgets that you can use. These are all out of the box. I haven't actually imported any custom widgets. There are lots of them out there on the marketplace, everything from very specialized grids or to Google Maps, and pretty much anything you can imagine. And if there's something that you don't find here in all the charts and graphs and displays, you can definitely build your own. That's part of the extension framework that we're enabling with the Eclipse plugin, and I can show you here in a moment. So yeah, as you can see, there's lots and lots and lots of UI options. It's as easy as dragging one over, setting it on there. You can configure your bindings, or if you want to quickly and easily do a drag and drop of click over to this go button here. Oh, no compatible services. If we had done that, we can, the click will initiate and update the weather info service. So these are services that are on your thing. So anything and everything that you put into your ThingWorx model on a thing, that will be available to you to use inside of your mashups. All the properties you can visualize, all of the services you can initiate and have them chain to invoke each other on different events or on UI events, stuff like that. So I think that's all I've got for Composer. There's obviously a lot here. I definitely suggest that you go out and check out some of the tutorials to gain a little more info. Now I'm going to move back to the slides. All right, so I've already mentioned a couple of times what extensions can do. So we'll go over really what is an extension, why we want one, and how do we create one. So what is an extension? It's a way to expose really any new functionality into the ThingWorx platform. So ThingWorx as a platform is really built for developers like yourself to add your functionality. We don't really aim to solve any specific problem. We know that that's what developers out there are good at. They know the products. They know, what will really enable them to be more efficient. And our job as a platform is to make that really, really easy to create. And you can also use an extension to just hold a collection of your entities. If you have, multiple ThingWorx instances on platform or on, for example, industry floors, then you may want to, send all of your entities to each instance. So you can package those all up in an extension. One that I don't have listed here is you can create UI elements, like I mentioned earlier. Anything JavaScript, HTML, you can add in as a widget into the platform and use in your mashups. So why would you want one? You can take any third-party Java libraries that you have. You can add them in essentially using our extension framework and our SDK, and they'll almost instantly be available inside of ThingWorx. So if there's a distributable jar that your company has that has its internal libraries in it, then we would be able to access those through an extension with ThingWorx and create a really easy and fast integration. You can create functionality to be shared. That's one of the great functions of extensibility, is that you can share what you've done with the rest of the developer community. And like I said, there is a marketplace, which I'll show more towards the end, that has lots of examples of extensions that we at ThingWorx have built and our community has built, our partners have built. It's a really great place to go and share your knowledge, and hopefully, a lot of the things that you're looking to do have already been done, or you can add and contribute. You can create global services, which is good. Usually, like I've mentioned so far, a lot of the services and functionality live on the thing itself. But through an extension, you can create something called a resource, and that will enable you to create some global services. It'd be more like, if you're a programmer, more like a helper class, something you can just call from anywhere and get some relevant information quickly and easily, and not have to really go reference any specific thing or initialize an object. So I mentioned already building custom widgets. Also, you can do custom authenticators and directory services, which is really helpful for a lot of our partners and clients to use a single sign-on method. So they use whatever they have, LDAP or some other single sign-on type of functionality, and they'll build a custom authenticator, and ThingWorx will automatically start using that. So there's a lot here, a lot it can do. It must be really complicated to make, right? Well, that's what we built the plugin for, the Eclipse plugin. It's really easy, and you can get up and running really, really quickly, and I will show that next. All right. So what we see here is just a regular instance of the Eclipse IDE. What we've done at ThingWorx is we've created our own perspective, noted by this ThingWorx icon up here in the corner. We were able to use a lot of the functionality given by the Eclipse platform and make the process of creating things and creating your extensions really, really easy. So I have an example here of an Open Weather Map API. So Open Weather Map is an open source API set that just allows you to go and get current weather data. So it references a little bit back to the mashup that I showed earlier, and it's a very simple API to use, and I used it as an example to show how quickly and easily you can add functionality. To quickly show some of the things that we've added in the plugin is, there's menus here. You'll recognize a lot of these entity types, thing template, shape, widgets. You can easily create these, and they will generate those entities for you in Java, so you can really customize the functionality. There's also a quick toolbar option here, and you can create a new entity from any of these, or you can create a project itself. So I'm going to go ahead and create a project, start from scratch, and I'll build some of the functionality of this Open Weather Map extension here in a new extension, but I won't make you watch me write all of the code for it. So some of the prerequisites for building an extension is we have a couple options for build frameworks. You can use Ant or Gradle. What we'll do is we'll generate a build script for you that will do the compilation and packaging of your extension so that you don't really have to worry about all the odds and ends and making sure that it's in the right format for it to be imported. We'll handle all of that for you out of the box. You will need an SDK or an SDK. You can get those from the eSupport page or from the Eclipse Marketplace or the ThingWorx Marketplace. A vendor. These aren't the SDK location. I think is the only thing that is required, but definitely worth it, especially if you're going to submit it to share to have your information. You can version extensions here, and this minimum ThingWorx version is actually populated automatically by your SDK. So we make sure that the versions of ThingWorx that you're going to work with are powered by that SDK, and because I used a 7.2.0, that will be my minimum version. I could change this to a 7.1.0, and it would change here because it would know it would be compatible back to at least 7.1. So you can customize this just like you'd customize any other Java project. Some of the libraries in here, this is what got populated from the SDK. You can do any customization of, moving bin folders or source folders or however you want your project formed. That's fine. You can do that here. Just going to go ahead and finish, and we got our project created for us here. So some of the things that, like I said, it does for you is it gets your build file. It creates this metadata XML. This was something that was a sort of a headache for new developers to figure out. I'll open it up and show you here. It's got a lot of, it's a simple XML now, but I'll keep this open and show you as we add some things. It can get complex pretty quickly and a little bit hard to manage. So what this plugin does for you is it will manage all of this automatically. When you create things, it will add them. If you delete things, it'll remove them. As you edit things, it will change the aspects in here. So you really don't have to worry about that, but you can come in and customize it if you want. So now that I've created it, kind of showing you what all happens when you create some of the things it can do for you, we'll go ahead and create a thing template. This here will, it's just like creating a new class. You need a package, have a name. Like I said, the templates inherit from each other, so the basic one is a generic thing. If you were to create multiple thing templates, you could have a base thing template of any of those as well. This is for any thing shapes that you want to implement. A superclass always has to be thing. This is all defined just for you. It can be made editable so that once you import it into ThingWorx, you can change some of the aspects, change description, things like that from Composer UI. Otherwise, entities that come from an extension are not editable inside a Composer. You need to iterate it with it inside of your extension and then re-import. We'll go ahead and finish, and you'll see that it created a class for us here. It handles a lot of the annotations that get created, really enables the developer to focus on what's really important, which is writing the code. We didn't want all of the developers getting stuck on how do I create what's the annotation for a base thing template? What's the annotation for a service or a property? So we wanted to make auto-generating this stuff as easy as possible. So if we want to add a service or a property, you can right-click in here. You can right-click over on the file itself and add a service or property configuration table, subscription event. I haven't really gone over what these are, but on a low level or a high level, there's a service is just a function. It's a set of some custom code that can be viewed by the ThingWorx platform as invocable through a REST API. So everything in the ThingWorx platform exposed as a service or property with these annotations will be available from a REST API, and therefore really, really easy to reach from other applications or from the edge devices or things like that. Property is a single data point that would be out on your thing. So imagine a property being temperature or vibration or voltage or something like that. Configuration table is something that's just a one-time configuration on your thing. I'll show quickly in a second the template that I created for the open weather map that does have a configuration table because you need an application key to send to open weather API so that they can authenticate. And that's really one-time setup, so that's why it would go in a configuration table. Subscriptions and events kind of go together there, and you can tie an event to a property and say when the property is above or below a certain amount, it sort of rules, then it will, kick off an alert. And if you've subscribed to that alert, then you'll get a notification somehow, whether it be text message or email or a pop-up or what have you. So it really enables a lot of this stuff to be very easily created. So I'll click Add a Service here. You can do things like description, category. Categories are nice because they'll group all your services together inside of ThingWorx. You can create your input parameters. You can create different or use different base types. So if you want to make it a long, there's some additional characteristics here, min or max or units. You can make it required. You can say it has a default value or not. Just going to create a simple one here. The output parameter of the service is if it returns something. So if you want to return a long or a location or just a JSON string, really we have lots and lots of base types to kind of customize these services to however you need them. So we will do the return type simply as string and hit finish. So as you'll see, it created all this code for us. This is really helpful. It saves a lot of time. Instead of trying to write out, all of these parameter annotations and service annotations and result annotations, ThingWorx is really, really customizable, but that means sometimes, you can get lost in the code and there's a lot to know. But we try to make that, as easy as we can here with our auto-generating. We also generate some logging statements to try to make it easier to debug. These logging statements can be tracked inside the platform as well. They make it really, really easy to dive into the platform and start debugging your extension, testing it, playing around with it, and going from there. I'll do one other quick example of a property. I'll do this one a little quicker. String. This data change value type is like I mentioned, the events that happen. These are tied to data change types. So they can, every time that this property changes, there will be an event thrown, and therefore you can subscribe to it if you want, and there. So very customizable. And then, as you can see, these annotations get created for you up here. So we try to really cover as much as possible. Leave the developer to start developing all of the things that they know the best, which is what they want their functionality to be. And they don't have to worry as much about all of the APIs and all the annotations and all of that. So next I'm going to show you a little bit of more of a finished product, which is this open weather map. So you can see here that there's all of these annotations that were auto-generated for us, an event and a subscription, a configuration table, like I said, with an app ID. It also got a few services, update weather info, which I'll show you in a moment in Composer. And this is the custom code that I wrote to go to the open weather API and get the current weather for the location that we will provide. This is a service that was created to handle our event, and so it will just send an alert when the event happens and there's bad weather. So, as you can see, a lot of this was generated. Really, the only code that I had to write was this custom code to actually go to the weather API and do the custom functionality that I wanted to do. So I'll show a build now. I can run this as I chose Gradle. Sure. And so you can do a Gradle build. Ant works the same way. You can see that it will run your build down here. The build files they auto update for you as well. So if there are things that change in your project that need to be represented inside of a build file, we do some of those automatic changes too. So we try to make it as easy as possible so you don't have to get caught up on those little things that tend to slow down developers. So now our build was successful. What it did was generate a zip for us through that zip into build distributions here. And so this zip is created in the exact format that it needs to be imported into ThingWorx. So we can jump back over to Composer and import this right now. So if we import export and go to import extensions, choose the file. I'm already in my workspace. Then build distributions. There's our zip. So you can validate before you import. That'll show you, okay, everything's fine. We didn't find any errors. Go ahead and import. If we close this, it'll say it often includes widgets. We can go and do that. That's because it will actually load any widgets into the DOM. So anything UI related, sometimes you can customize Composer itself, and it will show you, those changes live in Composer. So this is the demo mashup that I showed. Let's actually jump over to the real mashup, which won't be able to edit because, like I said, it came from an extension, and so they're not allowed to be editable out of the box, but we can view it. And so this is a great way to test and play with the mashups that you're creating in real time. So if I were to edit this, change some things in here, I would be able to jump over and just reload this, and my changes would automatically be represented. You can do some things like different screen sizes, and change a lot of what you would in the UI to do some testing here. So what the functionality is, that all will work to this is, this is where I am. Hit go here, and it will go out to the Open Weather API with the one service that we created. It'll find the weather, represent it with a picture, a small description, scattered clouds, and the temperature. Do a couple of things here. So, yep. So that's how easy it is to really build an extension. I went through it slow and explained quite a bit, but really once you've done it once, you can spend almost all your time just focusing on whatever the functionality is that you want to add, and that's really what we're trying to enable here with ThingWorx. So I'm going to jump back over to the slides. And next, I'm going to talk a little bit about our developer portal. So our developer portal is kind of our one-stop shop for everything that is about extension development. It's actually all about ThingWorx, and it's got a very broad spectrum, but this is where you can go and find tutorials like the weather app that I showed today. There's a tutorial on the dev portal called Creating Extensions with Eclipse. You can walk through all of the links to download the Eclipse plugin, to go to Open Weather API and create your app key there, to walk you through writing the code and what the services look like that you need to implement. Um, that'll all be in there in that tutorial. There are quite a few other tutorials, quick start guides, and all documentation is there. It can really get you some hands-on, quick and easy education on how to get up and running quickly as a developer in ThingWorx. There's also free developer trial editions. This is probably one of my favorite parts about the developer zone. If you want to go and try it at all, play with it, there's some hosted instances. You can go and click, create me a hosted instance, and it'll spin you one up, and in a couple of minutes, you'll be able to be playing with ThingWorx. Those will last 30 days, or there's a download version. You can download, host it yourself, whichever you prefer. But we definitely try to make it as easy as we can to get you guys up and running and show you really what ThingWorx can do and how you can help us be the best platform that we can be. I'm actually going to jump over and show you the dev portal and show you a couple other things that can that we provide for you there. So this will be the landing page, developer.thingworx.com. There's quite a lot here. If you scroll down, it gives you some of the architecture, some of the other products that we provide. Vuforia, which is our augmented reality solution. ThingWorx Analytics, which is partially related to that analytics part in the UI that I showed you. Once you start collecting data, you can run predictive analysis, failure predictions, things like that. Kepware, which is industrial connectivity, so it's sort of the edge communication system that would run on an industry floor or somewhere with lots of connected devices. ThingWorx Utilities allows you to really easily manage and create the business part of ThingWorx, which is define your users, manage your processes, things like that. But really, if you are an extension developer or want to be an extension developer, you'll head here and you'll probably head straight to the dashboard. The dashboard is where you'll find all the quick start guides that I mentioned. You'll find this Start Foundation Server. This will actually say Create Foundation Server, I think. I have one going right now that will expire in 10 days. I usually have one up and running because I like to use it for testing and the same types of things that you guys will be using it for. It's very, very useful. You can also have them host an analytics server if that's something that you want to get your hands on, or here you can request a trial developer edition. You just put in your name and email and we'll send you a downloadable version. But some of the tutorials make it really, really easy to jump in and get started. So there's a basic ThingWorx Foundation tutorial. This is where you go if you want to learn to use Composer more. You learn more about the other entity types that I mentioned earlier, and just really get hands-on in Mashup Builder and things like that. Tutorial getting started using Java SDK or ThingWorx Utilities. This Create Extensions with Eclipse is the one I mentioned. It'll walk you through building the weather extension that I showed today, or CSDK, or there's quite a few other quick starts and analytics APIs. Lots of things to do here. One other thing that I mentioned earlier was the marketplace. So as you can see, the dev portal is really kind of the place you want to end up and be able to find all this information from. But you can get to the ThingWorx marketplace here, quickly log in, and we can take a look at what's offered here in terms of extensions. So this is the list of all the extensions. I could scroll down, but there are hundreds. Just a couple of examples. We have a Windchill extension for those that are using Windchill. Google Maps routing if you want to draw routes in a map, for example, GPS location tracking of things. Smart grids, smart grid properties. There are edge device, custom charts, extension SDK. This is what I mentioned earlier. Actually, this is the one I'll focus on, the Eclipse plugin for ThingWorx extensions. There's lots and lots of extensions built in our community, so I'd suggest you come check it out. But to get started building, you definitely want to come to the marketplace and download this Eclipse plugin, which is what I used for the demo today. There's also links to the SDK download, all of the release notes, and the extension development guide, which will be a very, very useful tool for getting started building extensions. It'll have a lot of the APIs mapped out, a lot of the do's and don'ts for those things that we couldn't automate for you. We've tried to document in this development guide. I think that covers what I have for today. Can jump back over. I think we can move on to some questions if we've had any come in.
Great. Thank you so much, Taryn. Yeah, as Taryn already said, if you have any questions, please feel free to submit them through the Q&A pane. We actually do have already a couple questions that came in, so I would suggest we start with these. So the first questions, actually the first two questions that I have for you, Taryn, are around versioning. I believe they're around versioning. So one is, how is versioning of extensions handled in ThingWorx and the Eclipse plugin? And the other one that I believe is related to that is, how do you deal with conflicting jar versions? Maybe we can just handle the two of them together.
Yeah, definitely can. Let me actually jump over to share my screen again. So ThingWorx uses simple semantic versioning for extensions. It's major, minor, patch version, and there's actually a monitoring. Oh no, it's under manage extensions. So this will show you so the minimum required version, the package version. How we want versioning to be done with extensions is, any major additions or functionality changes that are or would be backwards compatible or doesn't really change the model but adds, you can increment the minor or patch. If you do make non-backward compatible changes, you'll want to upgrade the major version. And installing a new major version, you'll actually have to remove the old one because there's some clashes there. But yeah, so when it comes to jar conflicts, in the documentation there's a list of jars that are supplied by the ThingWorx platform. Those are ones that we use in our APIs and provide for you to use in your extension. And those you would want to just add as resources inside of your plugin. So just like you would any other, you can go to your build path and add some libraries here or other source if that's how you want to apply it. The list of jars that we have, it's pretty extensive, so I would definitely check in the documentation for that and see what you can take advantage of. If there are, in terms of like installing an extension on top of another extension, if you put a new version of a jar into your extension and then try to reinstall it, it's not going to pick up the new changes. It'll keep the old jar, import the new jar, but it won't recognize the new jar until you restart your Tomcat. So there is some work there to be done on the ThingWorx side, something that we definitely have kept in mind and are trying to work through, but Tomcat and Java itself make it really difficult to remove jars from a running application. And so, adding is very easy, but replacing, you do need a Tomcat restart. Oh, and one other quick thing, since I'm in this ThingWorx extension, you can handle the versioning here. We added a properties page, so at any time you can come in and increment this package version, and that will get built into your plugin the next time you build it.
And I have another follow-up question from the same attendee. He's asking, if I'm using a newer version of the jar than the one that comes with ThingWorx, how do I deal with that?
There are a couple ways you can deal with that. Usually that will end up being, a conflict and would try to keep using the latest versions in ThingWorx. It might be that you have to find, another option. I'm not exactly sure the best way to handle that, but I know there are examples of that in our community. If you wanted to post that question, I know others are doing it. I haven't done it myself, so I'm not exactly sure all the details. But definitely go out to our ThingWorx community site. That's something I haven't shown from the developer portal. Community site here is another link up top, and that will allow you to search for resources that have already been asked, look at other questions that are being asked of the community, or post your own questions as you wish. So I don't exactly have a straight answer for that, but it's something that we'd work with the team to get to. You'd want to contact ThingWorx, and we would work to update to the jar version that you need, or work with you to find an option.
Great, thank you, Taryn. Another question that is around versioning, or somewhat around versioning, is can I build extensions for 6.5 and 7.0 using the same Eclipse plugin?
Yeah, definitely. So kind of like I mentioned earlier, we'll jump back into that UI. The SDK location, or SDK that you pick, I think the Eclipse plugin actually supports 6.6 up. So I guess the answer is no. 6.5 you can, and you can utilize some of these things, but you'll have to do a little more manual work. The reason is that in 6.6 there were some significant changes to the SDK and sort of how extensions are packaged, and the Eclipse plugin is built on top of that new packaging. So you certainly can create a project. So if I use that 6.5 SDK and it doesn't work, but you can just create a new Java project, and there is a configure option to convert this to ThingWorx extension. So this is getting along the realms of not really supported, because we really only support the 6.6 and up. But you can, using this, it'll add the it'll make inside of Eclipse this an extension, a ThingWorx extension project, and so you should be able to access some of the ThingWorx UIs and stuff like that inside. Yeah, so you would be able to take advantage of these resources, but just know that not all of the APIs are the same, and some of the annotations have changed a little bit, and so just be careful in writing backwards compatible extensions. Certainly.
Great, excellent. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Taryn. Another question that came in is, apart from mashups that let you build simple visualizations for an extension, if I were to build a full-blown application with lots of additional metadata, what provisions are available, and do I use the same extension framework?
Yes, you do. That is an option. Full-blown web app is something that we support in ThingWorx. We actually have a web app entity type. It's not viewable in Composer because it kind of lives on its own. There is documentation on that you can find in the developer guide, I believe. But what you would have to do is build it as a web app itself, and then make sure that it is deployable in the certain format that we need. I'm not exactly sure what that format is off the top of my head, but there is as long as it can be deployed into a running Tomcat, it can be in an extension.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, if you wanted to, whoever asked that, if you wanted to follow up afterwards, we can point you to the documentation where you can find an example of that.
Perfect. And we can reach out exactly right after the webinar. So another question that came in, is there a plugin for IntelliJ? So I guess a similar plugin as the Eclipse plugin for extension development.
There is not. There have been lots of talks about an IntelliJ plugin. At this time, there aren't plans for development of one, but if anybody is interested in the community of creating one with IntelliJ, being open source, then we'd be willing to work with them and give some input and help them develop it if they're willing, or it is in the plans for the future, but not exactly when in the future.
Excellent. Next question that I have here. What type of communication extension or plugin is used when connecting machines using the DS232, so a serial port? I don't know if that is too specific or if you actually have.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure about that specific connection type. Like I mentioned earlier, anything that's created inside of ThingWorx is open to a REST API. That's just the default out-of-the-box communication protocol. As I probably showed, if we go back here to the marketplace, you can probably find an extension that works for that. I'm going to say probably because I don't know everything that actually is covered, but I know there's a lot covered. The type of extension is usually going to be built off of one of our Edge SDKs. They're a little bit different than the extension SDK because they're meant to be communicating with the platform over an Edge protocol, so like a WebSocket or Co-op or MQTT or something like that, whereas the extension SDK, which I showed earlier, is meant to be running in process inside of ThingWorx. So if we jump over to, Edge SDKs has its own category in the marketplace. So there's an Android protocol adapter, Java, .NET C, iOS, lots of options, and there's some other just specific devices or device protocols that are from some of our partners that may work with the devices using the connection mechanisms that you're using. So definitely check out the marketplace for extensions that exist, and it might just, have one that does exactly what you need. If not, you'd probably build one off of one of our Edge SDKs.
Excellent, thank you. Another question that I have here, how is migration handled with ThingWorx extensions?
Migration, it a little bit has to do with the jar information I talked about earlier, but one other thing that we provide is a new entity type called an extension migrator. So it makes sense over time that your entities will change, or you will have to remove something or change something inside of a specific entity, and so the logic won't work like it used to. And instead of completely removing your extension and reinstalling a new one, which might have some other consequences, you can write an extension migrator to upgrade your extension. So this has one simple function that you need to implement, this called migrate, and really this is kind of open for you to do whatever it is. It assumes that you know the state of your extension before and the state after, and can do the applicable changes to migrate that on your own. There are a few other pre and post migrate steps that you can implement too that just come from this superclass. So we try to make migration as easy as possible, but it's hard without not knowing really what the extension is or how it's built. So that's kind of left up to the extension developer themselves, but we do offer a way to migrate versions.
Thank you. And I got another question for you. Are there any hooks provided for unit testing your extension code, such as mocks?
There are not available right now. It's something that we're actually working on as we speak, a mechanism for testing. The the suggested way to test now is to import your extension into ThingWorx and run a sort of integration test against it using the REST APIs or some other mechanism to call the services that you have. There is a test mechanism that's more of a manual test inside of Composer. So if we were to go to the thing that we created, look at the service, it has this handle weather service. You can hit test right here and send it, an event time or whatever the input parameters are, and execute the service so you can test it manually. This is really nice because how we get developers to really use the platform and be able to jump back and forth and quickly, easily use it. In terms of automated testing, our SDK is really just documentation kind of mocked out already, so it doesn't give you all of the functionality that's in the platform. And so unit testing with mocks are a little difficult at the moment. We're working on how we can make that easier, but you probably want to stick with just unit testing your specific functionality and then a sort of integration test that hits the platform itself.
Okay, thank you, Taryn. I know there are a couple of other questions that we weren't able to answer yet, but as I already promised at the beginning of the webinar, we will definitely follow up with everyone individually after the webcast. So I'm sorry about that, but I want to be sensitive about everyone's time. Taryn, if you don't have anything else?
I am good. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I hope it was helpful. Definitely head over to the Developer Zone and check us out, and give ThingWorx a try, and see what kind of awesome innovations we can make all together. So.
Exactly. Yeah. Also, thank you from my side, everyone, for joining us for today's webcast. If you do have any other questions, please feel free to either post them in the developer community that Taryn just shared with you earlier, or send us a note via our contact forms. There are many other ways to get in touch with us, even social media, and we'll definitely get back to you as soon as possible. Also, again, this webcast was recorded, so we'll send you an email after the webcast with the recording. So I hope that you found today's session valuable and came away with a better understanding of how to develop ThingWorx extensions using our Eclipse plugin. And just again, thank you so much for joining us today.